folks, and welcome to the Horror Corner. Well, another day to live out. Better get started. Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Horror Corner. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Erschen. This week we are doing another movie review. This is The Last Man on Earth. Released in 1964, directed by Sidney Salkow and Ubaldo Ragona, and starring the great Vincent Price. Yes, this is a U.S. and Italian co-production. It was mostly filmed in Rome, Italy, with a hugely Italian cast. And, of course, their voices had to be dubbed over and all, you know. And another interesting tidbit about this film is it was almost a Hammer film. Yes, Hammer bought the rights to this film and they were going to release it, but it didn't get past the British film censors, apparently, because as we know about the Italians and their horrors, they pull no punches, because this film is pretty brutal for its time, you know, a lot of nasty kills, a lot of dead bodies everywhere, you know, it's pretty intense. And this is the first of many adaptations of the classic novel by Richard Matheson, I Am Legend. Which, you know, one came out in the 70s called The Omega Man, and then we had the big Hollywood budget version, I Am Legend, starring Will Smith. And while not an official adaptation, the original Night of the Living Dead was heavily inspired by that story. And I think that's quite evident when you watch this film. You're going to see a lot of similarities to this and the original Night of the Living Dead. And this came out 4 years before that, so. So the film stars Vincent Price as Dr. Robert Morgan. And I have to admit, I am a late bloomer when it comes to Vincent Price. But I've really been enjoying going down the rabbit hole and revisiting all these old classics, you know. And yeah, he's great. And I have to say, this is my favorite Vincent Price movie. He's fantastic in the film. So what happens is, when Dr. Morgan wakes up, we find that he's in the middle of the apocalypse, basically. When he looks outside, you know, he sees a bunch of dead bodies all over the streets and in front of his house. And he keeps himself barricaded in the house at nighttime. And you see his windows are all boarded up, and in the windows he's got strands of garlic hanging up and mirrors, because we all know vampires can't handle mirrors. Yes. So he's fighting vampires. Yes, these vampires exhibit a lot of the classic traits of vampires, you know, the lore, you know, they can't handle garlic, they're repelled by it, and in this film, they cast a reflection in the mirror, but they can't stand the sight of themselves in the mirror, their own horrific image. So yeah, basically the vampires have taken over the world. And it's up to him as the last man on Earth to take them all out. And he does so in the classic fashion with the wooden stake to the heart. So during the day they can't go out in the sunlight, of course, which is another classic trait of the vampire. Another funny thing is these vampires exhibit a lot of traits of the classic zombie as well, you know. They're kind of like slow and unintelligent, they kind of shamble and shuffle around, you know. And we see at night, they all come out at night and they try to bash down his door, and they're trying to get inside to kill Dr. Morgan, you know. Including one of his own colleagues and fellow doctor. We see him with the 2x4 bashing doors like, Morgan, come out! Come out! And those scenes, like I said, are very reminiscent of Night of the Living Dead, because, most of that movie takes place with the people in the house. They're barricaded themselves in the house, and the zombies are trying to get in. So yeah, it's very similar in a lot of ways. But Vincent Price has a fantastic performance. And all throughout this, he does the same thing every single day. He gets up and he looks at the calendar and crosses off each day. Another horrible day that he has to live in this horrible world, overrun by these monsters, these vampires. And he's pretty good at dealing with them. He takes hundreds of them out at a time, and he dumps them in his car and drives them off to this humongous fire pit, this unending pit of fire, because apparently that's the only way you can really kill them, and they won't come back if you burn them to death. And yeah, and he basically does the same thing every day. He sets everything up, he goes to the store, he gets all the things he needs to handle the vampires and keep them at bay. And that's just it. In the meantime, he's trying to, of course, come up with an antidote to this horrible plague, a vaccine, if you will, a cure. And then we see at one point in the film, he starts to flash back to the events that took place before the plague spread about the whole world, And, we meet him and his wife and his child. He's got a young daughter. And he's talking about, this germ that's going around that's contagious, and it's spreading kind of like wildfire, and it's infecting a lot of people throughout the city, Him and his colleague and everybody at the science lab are trying to figure out what's going on. What is this virus's origin, and how can they keep it at bay, or how can they come up with a cure? And they're just driving themselves insane because they can't figure it out, and it's just spreading everywhere, and people are starting to die off, And it's legend throughout the town that some of them are coming back from the dead. So yeah, the plague is starting to spread throughout, and it's taking out a lot of people, and we see that the government is, I don't know if they're trying to cover it up, but they're going to each person's house where someone died and just taking the bodies and dumping them in the huge fire pit, and it's just causing so much distress to the families, to the parents. Their children are dying and they want to have a proper funeral and they can't bury them. And they're like, why can't we bury our son? Why can't we bury our daughter? Can't have a proper funeral. You're just taking them and throw them in a pit of fire. And it's insane. So there's just all kinds of pandemonium throughout the town. And, he's trying to work on everything, trying to come up with a solution. But, eventually the vampires take over. It's too much for them to handle, and everyone just starts dropping dead. Everyone's dying off, and they're coming back as vampires. And it's up to him, the last true man on Earth, because we find out that apparently he's immune to the disease. His blood is immune. So that's another way he's able to survive. And he believes, basically, that he is the last true man on Earth, Until he does finally meet someone that did survive, that she is a survivor by the name of Ruth. And, she comes to live with them, and they barricade themselves up at night. And again, they're trying to work together to see what they can do, while he continues to experiment on finding a cure. And he finds out that this woman is like injecting herself with some kind of vaccine that apparently keeps the virus at bay. Like, it doesn't cure the virus, but it's like, you're able to function normally. But once the drug wears off, though, they start to get infected again, And he goes up to her and he finds out, you're infected, aren't you? And he takes the strand of garlic and puts it to her face, and she's like, puts a mirror in front of the face, look at it. and she can't take it. She can't handle the mirror, so he finds out that she is infected, but, you know, she tells him that she's part of this group of survivors, that apparently there are a lot of other survivors out there that, you know, that they've come up with this, you know, vaccine that keeps the virus at bay, but the thing is, they're like some kind of cultists, and they're all dressed in black, you know, and, you know, all they do is just kill the vampires and just try to stay alive. They're just basically survivors, but it's weird. It's like some kind of cult, and they're trying to spy on Dr. Morgan, and she lets it be known that, you know, she was sent by this group to spy on him, you know. I don't know if they're trying to, you know, steal his knowledge or whatever, but they don't seem like they have the best of intentions. It's like they just want to kill him and take his discoveries, you know, just so they can survive, so they can cover their own butts, you know. And eventually she tells him, she tries to warn him, you know, they're going to come to get you, you know, and they're going to kill you, and they're going to take your discoveries, they're going to take all your knowledge and try and come up with a cure. But in the meantime, he actually does come up with a cure, and while Ruth is sleeping, he injects her with the cure, which part of it comes from his own blood, because he's immune. And he injects her with it, and she is cured. And she decides, and she sees that she can look in the mirror and not be repelled by her own image. And the garlic has no effect on her, so she finds, yeah, she's cured. But then, you know, the celebration is short-lived, because the group of survivors come to get Dr. Morgan, and they try and kill him, and so they're on the run, and it all leads to this big, huge, you know, final epic battle in the middle of a church, you know, and the church is where he keeps his wife's and daughter's body, because as you know, as we find out, you know, his own wife and daughter succumb to the disease, you know, his young little daughter goes blind, and we see her in bed. Oh, mommy, help me, I can't see. And she ends up dying, and the government takes her body, throws her in the fire pit, and he freaks out, you know, he chases after him. What are you doing? And the same thing, unfortunately, happens to his wife, so every day he goes to visit his wife's body in the coffin, and his daughter's body in the coffin. He keeps it at this big church that he keeps all locked up. So the final battle takes place, you know, between all the survivors who, you know, they kill off all the vampires, and they're just trying to get Dr. Morgan, and they have this big epic conclusion. He's throwing tear gas bombs at them, you know. It's pretty intense. It's pretty awesome. So, yeah, I really enjoy this movie, and I do think this is the best version of the I Am Legend story. I think it's fantastic, and it's my favorite Vincent Price movie, so I do highly recommend The Last Man on Earth. I give it 2 devil horns way up. And thank you for joining me, Sean Patrick Erschen, in the Horror Corner. Tune in and stay scared. Good evening, folks, and we got some brand new merchandise for you over at www.thehorrorcona.com, and that's CONA.com. Representing the Horror Corner. Great new design. We got the Morbid Hour live stream there, you got the Horror Hangout live stream there, and you got my nemesis, the Dark Fate. So grab your t-shirt over at www.thehorrorcona.com. And we also got this beautiful new mug. Look at that. Very, very cool. Thought that came out really nice. So grab your merchandise today over at www.thehorrorcona.com.